All new tonight, this is new video of the Leroy man who police say set off a deadly chain of events that left one neighbor dead and sent a house up in flames.
And tonight, the family of 69-year-old Norman Don Ball wants to know why someone would shoot and kill him in his sleep.
This all happened early this morning while many people were still asleep, and investigators say that the tense situation there could have ended with even more victims.
And that's because police say the suspect, identified as 53-year-old Kyle Johnson, opened fire on a police officer and a firefighter. Tonight, Johnson is in custody facing charges of arson and second-degree murder. 7 Eyewitness News brought you the breaking news this morning. It all began around 4 a.m. when rescuers were called to a fire at the suspect's home. Investigators say Johnson set his own house on fire, then opened fire on first responders who pulled up to the scene. Moments later, he walked to his neighbor's house and shot him.
At 5:30 this morning, police ordered people living in this area of Leroy on Selden Road near the Thruway to shelter in place, as they call it. At 7:53, Johnson finally surrendered peacefully, and that shelter place notification was lifted. 7 Eyewitness News reporters Ed Riley and Hannah Bueller both in Leroy tonight. We begin with Ed live at Town Court where Johnson was arraigned today.
Keith and Joanna, the man charged in this murder was just here at Leroy Town Court a short while ago. And tonight, Genesee County sheriffs are still trying to figure out the connection between the accused killer and his victim. But police do believe this was a targeted shooting, and it leaves behind a family in mourning and the community looking for answers.
It's a difficult thing. The whole family is suffering.
Just before 4 a.m. this morning, 69-year-old Norman Ball was shot to death as he slept inside his Selden Road home. The killer entering the house through a rear unlocked door, confronting a roommate, and then finding Ball sleeping in a downstairs room.
Mr. Ball, I was shot in the head with a 12-gauge shotgun. 53-year-old
Kyle Johnson is now in custody and charged with murder, burglary, arson, and reckless endangerment. He was arraigned this afternoon in Leroy Town Court. Norman Ball was known as Don to friends and family. This morning, many gathering at Ball's home looking for answers and remembering the Vietnam vet who they say had a big heart.
He started an orphanage when he was over in Vietnam, so he was well liked by all.
Ball ran a family construction business before retiring, now spending his days with his children and grandchildren, all of them shocked and heartbroken over the murder.
He very often took people who didn't have places to live and gave them shelter and food and was able to spend time with them.
According to Genesee County sheriffs, accused killer Kyle Johnson has a history of mental health issues. And after shooting Ball, police say he set his home on fire, shot at first responders, and tried to get police to shoot him in return.
Because he did walk up to one of our deputies and said, shoot me, shoot me in the head. And the officer restrained himself and the guy would retreat.
Neighbors tell us Johnson had talked about going through a divorce and having his house foreclosed on. But a month ago, he moved back into his foreclosed home and put up a no trespassing sign.
He wouldn't talk to nobody after he moved back.
Be sitting in a lawn chair on his driveway, just kind of looking out towards the street. So we found that strange.
Kyle Johnson is now being held without bail, and he's scheduled to be back in court this Friday. But this was a very dangerous morning for first responders. My colleague Hannah Bueller here with more on that.
Well, Ed, the horror of this morning wasn't only scary for the people living on Selden Road, but also for the first responders who were first on scene responding to not only a fire, but an active shooter as well. Shortly after shooting Mr. Ball, police say suspect Kyle Johnson walked to his home down the road and set it on fire. When the fire chief arrived on scene with the Leroy Village police officer to put out the blaze, officials say Johnson shot at them. Fire officials tell us the shots came 150 feet from hitting the fire chief and the officer.
Chief pulled in along with the mutual aid chief and our safety officer. He was just about to step out when he saw the individual at the driveway with the shotgun pointing it at them or in their direction, and takes, I believe, 2 to 3 shots at them. So he pulled out, got on the radio, said everybody hold. Then he called in that shots fired, shots fired.
Law enforcement was on their own secure channel and the fire department was on theirs, but we could hear them on their scan. Now, the first officer got on the scene. I wasn't there yet, so I haven't heard any communication problems.
The situation is eerily similar to what happened in Webster in 2012 when on Christmas Eve a suspect there set his home on fire to lure firefighters and then shot them. 2 firefighters were killed and 4 were hurt in that incident, but thankfully no first responders were injured during today's attack. A big topic today at the news conference that we were at just a short time ago is whether or not communication was sufficient enough between fire officials and police officers. I asked many questions about that at the news conference, and I'll have the latest coming up in the next hour. For Ed Riley, I'm Hannah Bueller. We are live in Leroy. Back to you in the studio.